All right, we'll go ahead and get started. These are recorded to be posted so others can join and be able to catch up. So thank you all for making time today. We are Collaborative Utility Solutions on behalf of DOE, who has graciously sponsored this initiative to create the FERC2222.org website and tracking system for activities related to distributed energy resources around the United States. We are starting the process of creating reports that detail some of the key issues that have happened along the way that have been identified as the top issues related to the implementation of 2222 and DER policy more broadly across the United States in an attempt to provide a baseline set of information for everyone so there's a common place that folks have an opportunity to go to find out what is happening across the United States in relation to distributed energy resource policy standards, implementations, and different aspects that are happening across the country. This tool is designed to attempt to filter out the volume in our wonderful world today of information overload. There is a tremendous volume of information, and while the tracker keeps track of the volume of information and everything happening throughout the states, we attempt to curate the content of the library and our reports to the highest priority items and the most relevant documents to help create a more of a curated list for everyone to be able to view and see the information. The team at Collaborative Utility Solutions with Richard Beeston, David Kathan, Michael Jewell, and Suzanne Bertin have worked tirelessly over the last several months to get this website up and running and be able to start gathering the data and put these issues in place to be able to report on them. So today, in our last few reports, we were able to cover two of the primary issues, both governance and data access and privacy as it relates to DER data. Those reports are posted on the website for the detailed discussion, but we will be providing an overview of that information today, as well as a little bit more information related to the website and the recent addition of discussion groups for commissions and commission staffs to be able to communicate with each other more effectively in a secure forum in which they can discuss these topics if they would like to. So with that, I am going to turn it over to all the smart people and let the chair of our advisory board, David Kathan, take over. And again, thank you all for being here today. And we look forward to any comments or additional information or questions that you might have along the way. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, as Chris mentioned, my name is David Kathan, and I am the chair of the advisory board. And prior to my retirement, I was at FERC, and I was the lead on Order 2222. So have a bit of knowledge on 2222 and have a keen interest in the implementation of the order. And I'm very interested and very involved in this project. I think is crucial for providing information to all participants and all parties. Could you move to the next slide, please? Well, actually, I'm sorry, step back. I just want to give you a bit of a run of the show. I will be giving a brief summary of the project, and then we will be then working through a demo of the website and especially the new portion, which is the discussion groups. We will then turn to what is happening lately. And as part of that, we'll have a guest speaker, as it will. Eric Hansard from the Michigan Public Service Commission will be talking about what's been happening in MISO with their work at organization of MISO states on implementation. Then we'll turn, as Chris had mentioned, to the two issues of which we're going to focus on in this webinar, which is governance and data access and privacy. So that's the order. So now we can just go to the next slide and just briefly go through, what this project is. This project is in collaboration with Pacific Northwest Natural Labs and sponsored by the Department of Energy's Office of Electricity. The disclaimers up there, the review and opinions expressed in this presentation are CUS's alone and do not necessarily reflect those of DOE or the Pacific Northwest Labs. Next slide. So the project is to track Order 2222 implementation and DER policy, and it's comprised of a number of aspects. Every 2 months, we put out a report, which is reporting on latest developments, and also one major issue we will be examining in detail each month. And along with that, we have a bi-monthly webinar, which this is one of. We've already done several already. Another one will be coming in April, where we'll go deeper into aggregation, registration, and review. The FERC2222.org website is up and running, has a lot of content, has the various recordings from various past webinars, past reports, has the tracking tool. It is very much designed to be a one place to go for any information you'll need to know about, especially state implementation of Order number 2222. White papers will be added to the website as they are developed. There are several in development. We'll put them up as soon as they're ready. And then what we'll be showing is also the new capabilities been added on the website in the last month or so, where we have active discussion groups, which will be where various state officials, state regulatory staff can participate and discuss. And then finally, the website has a library of what we see as the most important and key documents that people should be able to access and have it's not a complete full list, it's a curated list, as Chris was mentioning. Next slide. The bi-monthly reports contain and have a structure which there's a section on current news and new developments, a focus on a key issue, and then finally, information on how to access the tracking tool and for tips and highlights. Each of these reports will be posted and are contained on the FERC 2222.org website. Next slide, please. As far as the website releases, back in November, the website was became live and has been operational since then, and it contains all the information I just mentioned. Just recently in January, we added the capability for the discussion groups, and they were organized by key issues as we've identified, plus a general one. So there's 11 discussion groups in total, and there can be additional discussion groups added by request, or even if a particular region would like to have their own specific, discussion group, they can be added by request. There'll be a login required, and it will be, driven by the participants of the discussion group. These are focused to be state officials, state participation. They are not open. These are really requiring login such that there can be free discussion. Next slide, please. So turning now to Emily Beeson, who will walk through the website and the discussion groups very briefly. Go ahead, Emily.
All right, thanks, David. So I'm going to quickly take you through the actual website, and we're going to focus on the discussion groups. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So this is the FERC 2222 website. In our previous webinar, we did go through in more detail about other features of the website. So for today, I'm just going to be focusing on the discussion groups. So if we go over here to the discussion groups, this is the page as it looks if you are not logged in. So as David mentioned, this is a login required feature. So only certain people will be able to access this. So as you can see, as a not logged in user, I can view what groups there are, but I cannot look into any of those groups. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and log in. So quick little message. So in order to log in, you need to have an email from an organization that's been whitelisted. So if you go and try to log in now and it doesn't work, shoot us a message. You can use the contact us page. Let us know why you think you should be included. But for now, I'm going to use my email. There we go. Works. Agree to the code of conduct. So code of conduct is fairly straightforward. These are not closely moderated forums, so just be adults. Yeah, behave yourself. All right, so the type of login we use is the IAM login system, so Identity and Access Management. That pretty much means that you don't need to create a separate account for yourself. You're just using your company email, and then it's going to send you a login code to your email. Now, every time this code's going to be different, so it's all right if you see this because it's only going to work once anyway. But I will pull up what the email looks like. So this is a previous one. So it's going to look something like this. It should be in your inbox within a minute or two. So if you don't see the code, check in your junk folder because sometimes it can end up in there. So yeah, definitely check that out. All right, so now you can see it's a very different view of the discussion groups. I still have access to the rest of the site, but this is what the discussion groups page looks like now that I'm logged in. So you can see the different groups. You can see more information about each of them. If you want to go in more detail, you can click on each of the groups. On the right, you can see that I've got some that I am already part of, other ones that I'm not. So you do have the ability to go through and either join a group or just kind of peruse through it. It is important to note that for the discussions aspect of the group, which is the key part, so this one doesn't have any discussions right now, which is actually a good example. But if I were not a part of this group, I would not be able to add a new discussion or contribute it to it. You have to actually join the group in order to join the discussions. And up here, you can see that I am a member. I can leave if I want to. Up on the top right, you can also see your own profile. So this can be fairly customized. The most important thing there probably is to note that you can customize your notifications, and you can in this screen as well. Yeah, so I'm not going to dive too deep into this just for the sake of time, but the point is that's the login process. Once you have access to these discussion groups, you can go in, you can start discussions, you can start messaging each other, and you can see who all are members of the different discussion groups. Now, if you scroll through the list, we have quite a few set up already, so try to contribute in the one that makes sense to what you're talking about. We do have a general other group as well, so if you feel like it doesn't quite fit into anything that already exists, you can add it in here. And of course, this is something where we'd love to have feedback. So if you can think of ways that we can improve upon this, if there are other groups that you feel like would be helpful, definitely reach out to us. There is the contact us page on this website, so feel free to use that and reach out to us with any questions or feedback that you might have. So that's it for me on the very quick discussion group demo. And I will get the presentation back up and pass it back over to David. So let's grab that. And it's loading. All right, let's see.
Thanks, Emily. Emily's going to advance the slides to this slide.
There you go.
So in summary to what I was saying before, the FERC2222.org is now live. Check it out. But also, one thing that should be a lookout for is there is a NERC white paper that is in the works, and we will be putting links to that once it does get released. But it's an important one about reducing impacts on bulk power system variability and uncertainty associated with DER data collection. So just wanted to highlight that. We posted, as I said, to the website. The next webinar will be on April 24th, but please put on your calendar. Go to FERC2222.org to register. And finally, as I indicated before, we have bi-monthly reports and updates. They'll be on the website. Next slide, please. So I'm now moving into the next section, which is more of the meat of this webinar, which is first a brief summary of what's happening at all across the United States, and then we'll have Eric talk about what's happening in MISO. In general, there at FERC, there has been some activity in that FERC issued its compliance order, its second one, on MISO's filing for Order 2222 at its January open meeting. At a high level, they adopted most of what MISO had approved. They approved the 2029 implementation date and the use of single nodes, primarily as where aggregation can happen. They did require some changes. They did not like the use of an interim use of an existing demand response resource type 1 as a means to do aggregation in the near term, and also asked for more direction, more work being done on the coordination and how communication will happen. This order has been subject to a rehearing, and that rehearing requests have been put out. FERC has not taken any action on those requests yet, so that's still outstanding. And as Eric will talk about, MISO has been very active in its Distributed Energy Resources Task Force in the last several months. I'll let him talk more about that. Other state activity that's happening, there's been a number of activities. In December, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission closed its investigation of whether DER aggregations are public utilities. This was a outstanding question they were raising, which was, should a aggregation be a public utility or not? And their determination after consideration was generically that they would not find that DER aggregators were a quote unquote public utility. So that was a important finding, and I think it will make some help in determinations in other states. They're continuing their investigation and on 2222, and we expect some more work being done out of Indiana in the not too distant future. New Jersey held I thought a very good technical conference, covered a lot of different issues, great set of questions, well prepared back in January, and comments were due on January 31st. I have yet to see a link to the recording of the technical conference. I hope to see it gets posted soon because it is great information. I highly recommend people go and listen to it. And then finally, the other activity that's happened is the Maryland Public Service Commission issued a notice on the 4th of February requesting comments on a variety of issues coming out of its interconnection work group, which has been focusing on issues related to virtual power plants, vehicle to grid, and also FERC 2222 implementation. Those comments are due by March 5th. So that's the high level summary of what's happening around the country. And Eric, hopefully you can be able to be unmuted and join now and provide some summary of what's happening in MISO. I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, David and CUS for inviting me today. We can go to the next slide. It's a little bit about me first. I'm Eric Hanser. I'm with the Michigan Public Service Commission and kind of wearing my OMS hat today. I am the OMS DER Working Group Chair to talk a little bit about OMS's view on the importance of DER data exchange and what we've been doing at the DERTF over the past year. So back in February of last year, the OMS board did direct their staff to work with MISO on Order 2222, particularly the importance of developing a holistic approach to the DER data exchange. And actually, you can see that down below the graphic in our priorities. Those two are lifted directly from our website. The first kind of talks about Order 2222's compliance filing generally, and MISO's stance on that, and ways to prepare for that implementation effort. And the second one in particular talks about formalizing a DER data collection process and sharing process, which is really the key focus over the past year that we've been working with MISO with. So kind of as a culmination of all those efforts on February 18th of this year, we co-hosted with MISO a coordination conference on Order 2222, where we really talked about everything ranging from registration all the way down to operations that are envisioned from Order 2222. And really the purpose of our work over the past year was to try to validate our hypothesis regarding DER data exchange, why it's important, what gaps there are, and engaging with MISO and other stakeholders before we start mapping out next steps, which I'll talk about on the next slide. So really the key takeaways from a survey we conducted, I think we talked to 7 different entities across MISO, including some utilities that are already do demand response aggregation, and would have some vision for DER aggregation in the future, as well as demand response aggregators today that are effective that are active in the footprint. And really all those entities told us that there is a need for a centralized, standardized method to share information back and forth. Even at the state level, such a process doesn't really exist today. There isn't really a standardized method, particularly for aggregators to talk to the EDCs or the distribution utilities. So that was a unanimous need that we talked about at the conference as well a couple weeks ago. And really what's envisioned there is a paradigm shift. You do need both regulator action and MISO action because this is kind of the link between wholesale and retail. You need automation, you need an ability to track these enrollments, all the different data that's coming in, and try to avoid inefficient investments and building out retail systems that may interact with or overlap with what's happening at the wholesale system as well. Findings 2 and 3 are kind of related to number 1. 2 is just about defining those rules and duties for each entity. There was a lot of talk about how the process needs to be defined, both kind of in the tariff and as the next steps to operations and who needs what access to which set of data. And that's another piece where MISO does need to draft some rules in its tariff, as well as some regulatory retail guidance as well. And the third one is all about operations. That one is kind of a big question mark that a lot of entities have focused on, particularly the EDCs. But I'll give you a little bit of our next steps. The next DERTF is in April, where we're going to organize some of the feedback that we've received from that coordination conference and talk with MISO in coordination with OMS to talk about how to move this issue forward. And then at DERTF, we're planning to get some stakeholder buy-in into this process and talk about what needs to be done next. And with that, I can take any questions or turn back to David.
Emily, are there any questions? I'm happy to entertain them right now because it's a good chance to have Eric respond. Otherwise, we're going to hold to the end.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the Q&A section, so I think we're okay for now.
Okay, so I want to continue. Thank you, Eric. That was very informative. And I just want to note that both Chris Hickman and I actually were attended that February 18th meeting in person, and I thought it was great. It was, good content, a good ability to dig, provide input. So I'm looking forward to the readout of that meeting, because I think it will be useful and also informative for other RTOs and areas as they think about how to integrate the DERs and how to get aggregators involved in participating, but also be able to do it within state rules and state requirements. And when, as Eric just mentioned, the need for data is absolutely essential. And later on, Michael Jewell will be going a little more detail into that. So next slide. So I'm now turning to the subject of the issue focus that we did in the most recent bi-monthly report, and it's under the general title of governance. Governance covers, a number of issues, but it pretty much is a fundamental to how will the aggregations be able to operate? What are the rules? Who has the oversight responsibility? This is focused on, what are in particular, the state rules. The federal rules were been specified in the FERC order and specified through the compliance of filings and orders on them. So at the state level, states will need to examine whether there need to be any changes or rules or perhaps tariffs that will be necessary to accommodate DER aggregations. And so the issue report examines three of these items. First is just basic questions of jurisdiction, then registration, licensing of DER aggregations, and then dispute resolution. Next slide. So first, a little sidebar, just to provide a little, level setting on, because the issue of state versus federal jurisdiction is just right here in the middle, and a lot of usual questions about it. FERC jurisdiction is over the participation of DERs and demand response and energy storage into the wholesale market has been settled by the court in a number of different filings and decisions. And the most important one was in 2016 in the FERC v. EPSA U.S. Supreme Court decision. They found that FERC has jurisdiction over rules and practices governing the participation of demand response aggregations in wholesale markets. But it also affirmed the exclusive role of states to regulate retail electric sales and rates. So that's basically saying that states have a absolute role, but the feds and the FERC have a role in if the DERs are participating through an aggregator into the wholesale market. So it provides some overlap that it has to be addressed. 2019, after the issuance of the FERC Order 841 on electric storage, it was appealed, the order, and the DC Circuit, in their narrow decision, extended FERC's jurisdiction to energy storage, including behind-the-meter storage. By that point, it essentially was settled law that whereas resources behind the meter, resources at the retail level, can be able to participate through an aggregation into the wholesale market. And FERC 2222 applied these findings to DER aggregation. Next slide, please. Back to states. So states, what role a state has on the participation, or how a DER aggregation can participate, and how DERs in owners and agents for those owners are able to participate in aggregation is really based on state law and or regulatory rules. And that will determine whether modifications are needed or possible given certain rules. So I have on the slide several examples where states have landed on this issue. Michigan PSC, Eric's commission, after some review, determined that it did not have statutory authority to take any activity and do anything on DER aggregations. As a result, it essentially relies on MISO rules for participation. Maryland, it was kind of in the middle ground, and it chose to apply its existing electric supply regulations that has been, applying its existing rules for electric suppliers and for demand response providers to apply them now to DER aggregators. So since Maryland is a retail choice state, they've long had, rules for the licensing and for the registration of these suppliers. So they just amended those to not say they apply now to DER aggregators. So they already felt they had the capability to do this in state law. Indiana explicitly provided the commission, the Indiana legislature, that is, explicitly provided the commission with rulemaking authority in a bill to implement Order 2222 and require development of rules. So that's 3 examples of the kind of the spectrum of what states can do. And it really is state dependent, it depended on where the rules, what the statute says. Next slide, please. The next area is a key one is now that if an aggregator is able to participate and there are rules to allow them to be able to participate, then the question becomes, how do they get registered? And so there are a number of rules having to do with the eligibility of DERs and DER aggregations to operate in the state. And the key decision is whether to develop a licensing and registration process specifically for DER aggregations or to just adopt existing ones, and how detailed. And that specific question of how detailed, I know is an open question. I know that there are, especially in Maryland, I think there's some raised some questions that the pros licensing may be too detailed, and so it can be contentious. But on the other hand, Maryland still is a good example of state action. The PSC, as I indicated earlier, extended its jurisdiction over licensing and reporting and has applied that to aggregators. So now, in order to do business in Maryland, demand response providers and DER aggregators must file an application for a license to operate in the state. And included in that license filing, they have to indicate, their financial status. They have to provide, their ownership structure, and a variety of other requirements. So that's an example of how at least one state has gone about registration. And I think other states are considering the same type of things at the moment. Next slide, please. The final area has to do with dispute resolution. And dispute resolution is a new issue. It has to do with what if there is a conflict? What if someone feels that another party is not complying with the regulation of the rules? Who does that resolution to be determined by? Is this going to be at the state or is this going to be at FERC level? And FERC has addressed that in its original order, has also addressed that in compliance. And basically, what FERC is saying is that it has anything to do with the FERC tariff, with having to do with the PJM or MISO's tariff. They, in terms of how that's being implemented, that's subject to RTO dispute resolution and ultimately FERC. But it's anything to do with, it's not, to do with the actual tariff, that would rely upon states. So that means that states will need to start to explore procedures on how to address these disputes. And I noted this is a new issue. And there is not much as far as any kind of examination or at least orders on this yet. But at least one state in Pennsylvania has already asked some questions as part of their original set of requests for comments on FERC Order 2222. They've asked about whether the existing rules are applicable for dispute resolution for DER aggregation. So we'll see what they have to say on that, but I predict that this is going to be an important issue going forward. So with that, that's the end of the discussion on governance. And now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Jewell. Michael?
Great. Thank you very much, David. I really appreciate it. I think is there one more slide there? We move to the next slide. Awesome. All right. So we've got a quick summary following up. David, is there anything you want to touch base with regard to this?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot there was a slide. My apologies. Go ahead. You can just go cover it.
No worries. Next slide then, please. And so thank you, David. And I want to start off first by thanking Eric for hopping on to today's call. The work that DER Task Force, MISO, OMMS have been doing really has been bringing home this issue with regard to access to data and all the various issues that are going on with regard to the implementation of Order 2222. And so, just big thumbs up and kudos to the work that they've been doing and really kind of bringing this to the forefront. So I wanted to touch base with regard to access to data. And as Eric mentioned really at the outset, this is something that really has been it's a key issue with regard to enabling the implementation of Order 2222. This chart that we have with regard to DER data really helps show that there are a lot of different market participants that have got to access the DER data, and it's really the same DER data and maybe different elements of the same DER data, but as you go through the entire process of permitting, interconnection, planning, getting into system aggregation, creating aggregations, doing the registration, and around everybody, all the different stakeholders need to be able to access this information. And so if you don't have a central point of data access, then what you end up having to do is to start moving around data by spreadsheets, different PDFs that folks are moving around. And so what does that do? One, it opens up the opportunity for a significant amount of error, but then it also gets into the whole question with regard to potential violations of privacy. Next slide, please. And so privacy is one of those things that, it is an issue that all of us are very concerned about. And when you're thinking about privacy, first and foremost, the information with regard to a customer and their distributed energy resource belongs to the customer. And so as we think about data privacy, focusing on the customer is critical, and thinking about how do we have the customer allow people and all the different stakeholders to be able to access that information. And as I noted on the last slide, it's not that everybody needs the access to all the same data, but you're going to need to be able to allow that seamless access to data as it's needed by each market participant. In order to be able to help facilitate that, having a common information model using the CIM for how data is actually structured and made available becomes real important, because you've got a lot of different systems that are actually having to be able to interact with the data and be able to take advantage of it. And if you have that, if you're focused on the use of the common information model, that actually facilitates that integration without having to create multiple different interfaces to be able to communicate with the data. And so this is one of the things that really becomes kind of a key component, not only from an access perspective, but then also from a data privacy perspective, because again, you by having a more seamless ability to be able to interact with the data, you avoid that need for the manual movement of customer data through paper documents and spreadsheets. Next slide, please. So how do we make this happen? I mean, one way of being able to do it is actually to be able to enable a state regulator to detail what pieces of data each different market participant, each different entity that needs to be able to access the data can see. And so this is an example of one approach to be able to do it, where you literally can go through working with the state regulator and you identify, what information does a competitive retail supplier are they able to see and modify? What limited amount of information is the equipment manufacturer able to work with, aggregator, regulatory authority. And so you see all the different columns for each of the stakeholders, and then each X showing what element of data they will actually be able to see. And if you set it up in such a way like this, then you're embedding privacy protection into your data sharing methodology. And by restricting the access so that people are only seeing what they need to see, definitely helps ensure greater privacy, and also helps from a cybersecurity perspective. So, and I think those are the issues that I wanted to touch base on, and I am going to turn it over to Suzanne.
All right, thanks a lot, Michael. And before I bring it home, this actually might be a good opportunity. We've said that we'll take questions. It doesn't look like there's any questions in the queue right now, but just wanted to pause for a second and see if anyone does have questions for either David or Michael.
Or Eric.
Or Eric, yes, absolutely. All right, then let me just go ahead and bring this home. And we're going to bring it home with a call to action, as well as an invitation to collaborate with us. As y'all can imagine, it is a massive task to try to keep up with everything that's happening in all of the states across the US, as well as the RTOs and ISOs. And we welcome the opportunity to work with y'all more closely and collaboratively to get information out on what your state commissions or RTOs or ISOs are doing with regard to 2222 implementation. So we would just invite you to reach out. I've got my email address on this slide, and the other option is through the website. We do have a contact form. We'd love to know if there is any information that we are missing from the tracker. And also, as a former Public Utility Commission staffer myself, I get the fact that there are documents out there that, just reading the document, maybe you don't get the full color of what's happening at the commission. And so we invite you to work with us, share with us what you're working on, and thinking of it as answering the question, what would you like for other commissions to know about the work that you have underway with regard to 2222? So just want to make that offer to reach out to us. We'd love to collaborate. And with that, I think we will close it out. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to attend. And we look forward to collaborating with you.